primary theme that we were trying to drive home was to give the pause, to give pause in our lives, time to reflect, time to understand where we're going, to make sure we're going in the right direction. And we discussed that in this week's Sedra. There are no Parshios, which we explained yesterday, and it was just Bilam kind of steamrolling, going through life without thinking. And if you go through life without taking the time to think, you can end up in very, very much the wrong place. There's an interesting example right in the beginning of this week's Torah portion. Balak, who was the one that hired Bilam, so who did he send to try to convince Bilam to come? He sent some of his princes of the Sari Moab, but he also reached out to an arch enemy, to Midian, and he sent the elders of Midian as well to try to convince Bilam to come and curse the Jewish nation. And the Torah relates that they came there and they made their request. And Bilam said, let's stay the night, and I'll see what Hashem is going to tell me. And in the morning we see, let me find the verse. Bilam told them, stay overnight, and I will answer you. And the verse goes on to say, Vayeshu Sari Moav in Bilam. And the verse leaves out the elders of Midian. Seemingly they're not here anymore. And this is again another example. Rashi gives one interpretation, but another interpretation that I heard was, again, once there was time to think about it, whenever you inject time into any scenario, people can start thinking about what they're doing, they can think about the designs, they can think about their motives. And the most common phrase is, we don't even know why we say certain things we do, we don't even know why we say, well, let me think about it overnight. Why is that such a common phrase? What does that even mean? If you need to think about it, so think. Let me think about it overnight. That's such a concept. I've learned it even in life myself, that some things will happen. Something happened recently which distressed me, got me quite nervous about certain future events, how certain things would work out. And you know how you feel sometimes when I'm like, but I know, if it's actually true. In the morning, it's different. It's different. The night, there's something about transition, even though technically the day starts with the night, but the morning is a time of freshness, a time of doing. It's a time of a recreation of the world. The prayer services in the morning are more lengthy, they're more involved than the prayer service at night. We have to really kind of like re-energize the world. Things have to get going, and we ourselves are energized after a night's sleep. Besides the sleep, besides that our body's getting rested. So our batteries are recharged, but our neshama, or a portion of our neshama, goes up to Hashem, goes up to Shemayim. It gets recharged there as well. So pausing and reflection is always something that's should learn it as a lesson and train yourself. People that make, again, expressions, he made a rash decision. What do you mean a rash decision? He made a decision based on the information that he had, based on his level of intelligence, based on the circumstances, based on the facts, and he was an intelligent person. Why was it a rash decision? Doing something quickly is in itself a negative. Things that need to be done quickly, yes, when you're baking matzahs for Passover, it says do it quickly, because if you let time can turn, when you want to do something good, time is synonymous with chametz. Chametz can spoil things. Anytime you want to do something good, if you let time interject itself, you see, all of a sudden you have this urge of impulse. Let me do something good. It's actually a fascinating incident. It's a drop-off topic, but I think it brings out the point very well. As the time, but as far as, again, when things need to be thought out and things when allowing time it's healthy to assess, reassess, reevaluate the situation to make sure you're making the right decision. But if you have an impulse to do something that's unquestionably good, you don't doubt that it's good. You have a desire to help somebody, you have a desire to do a mitzvah, a positive commandment. You have a desire to sit down and study Torah. Anytime there's a positive influence, a positive impulse, act on it. And this is brought out beautifully. It goes back to Genesis. The Torah juxtaposes two very interesting incidents. One, without going them too much into detail, one is the incident with Yehuda and Tamar. Yehuda was married, he had lost his wife, and his two older sons were married, he lost his two older sons. It's a question of what's called yibum. It's complicated how it all applies to that chapter in the Torah, but nevertheless, it is a chapter in the Torah, and Yehuda's daughter-in-law ended up conceiving from Yehuda and giving birth to two very righteous people, two tzaddikim. And that was supposed to happen. However we understand that was supposed to happen, it was supposed to happen. And right after that is the famous story of Yosef in Mitzrayim, with Eshes Potiphar, the wife of Potiphar. And Rashi makes a and Yosef is called Yosef the righteous, Yosef HaTzadik, because at that young age, he was able to suppress his desires, and he passed the test. And even though Potiphar's wife was trying to seduce him, Yosef ran out of the house and he didn't transgress. Rashi brings up something which is extremely fascinating. Rashi says, why are these two incidents back to back? And we know when incidents are back to back in the Torah, they reflect upon each other, each one teaches the other one. And Rashi says, because just like Tamar, in the case of Yehuda, was acting for righteous reasons, and correctly so, we're not going to go into that now, so too Potiphar's wife was acting out of righteous reasons. That she knew that she was destined to have children from Joseph. She wasn't sure if it was her or her daughter. It ended up actually Joseph married Potiphar's daughter. So Rashi says her intentions were noble, which is, in and unto itself, is like a wow concept. But okay, Rashi telling to us that, fine, okay, Potiphar's wife's intentions in trying to seduce Joseph were noble. The Chedush Yerim, one of the great Hasidic masters, he gives a beautiful insight. And he said, if Eshes Potiphar knew this through, Rashi says, through astrological reasons or ways, but whatever she was capable of accessing in terms of what was ultimately the divine design, Yosef was at least equal to her. So whatever she knew, he knew. Which means to say that Yosef also knew that he was destined to have children from the family of Potiphar. And he says something which is fascinating. So what was going on here now? So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the test, the nisayon that Yosef had, and we're going to multiply it manyfold. Because not only Yosef, at the age that he was, in his young years of having to suppress his desires and pass the test, Potiphar's wife, but imagine this, he wasn't even sure if it was the Zecharia, the evil inclination that was trying to seduce him, or maybe it was a good inclination, maybe it was the Yetzer Tov. Just like by Tamar and Yehuda, it had Hashem's sanction and his approval, perhaps here too. So Yosef could have succumbed. Now that's a very difficult. Can you imagine you're in a situation where you have a desire, a very earthly desire to do something, and you have very good reason to believe that God's also telling you to do this. In this instance, I want you to do this. So how did Yosef ultimately decide? What happened? How did he decide to just run out? and he left evidence behind, and he probably knew what was going to happen. How did he know that it was the evil inclination and not the good inclination? He says, the verse says, Vayehi kedabra elav yom yom. Eshet Potiphar had desires on Yosef going back a while, and daily she would try to seduce him. And that's the key. The evil inclination, he's not going to let you go. He's going to try, he's going to try again, he's going to try again, he's going to try again. But the Yetzer Tov, the good inclination, yes, he does put this desire to do something good, but only once. If you act upon it, then you got that commandment, you got that mitzvah, and you get the reward for it. But if you push it off, it's gone. It's gone. And if you notice, it's interesting, actually, I heard this from, I think he's going to be lecturing here, Rabbi Yisrael Reisman. He said, it's fascinating, it happens all the time. That's how you get this impulse, I'm going to go into the Beis Medrash, I'm going to sit down and learn. And you go, you get up, you go into Beis Medrash, you open up the Gemara, and you start learning. As soon as you start learning, you remember there was something, you're going to do, I forgot to take my shirts to the cleaners, I was going to go tell them this, it happens almost all the time. As soon as you sit down, you remembered there was something you got to do, so let me just go do that. The problem is, if you do that, and it was something that you needed to do, of course it wasn't life or death, but you needed to do it, and I'm going to come right back. But now already, it's far from a certainty that you're going to have the same impulse to come back as the original impulse you had that brought you here in the first place. So Rabbi Reisman said he trained himself, and he said, okay, yes, I needed to do this, but can I do it in 5 minutes? This thing that I forgot to do, if I would do it 5 minutes from now, would it work? Could it? I had to take my shirts to the cleaners, or I had to give my wife something, or I had to, whatever I had to do. Could I do it in 5 minutes? Yes. Okay, so I'm going to wait 5 minutes. And he found that if you just take that one step, you forget about it. And then it didn't really need to be done. They say a story, it doesn't pertain to us because it's so above us. But to me, there was such a wow factor involved. There was a video they created on Rav Elyashiv. Have you heard of Rav Elyashiv? He passed away just a couple of years ago. He lived to over 100. He lived here in Yerushalayim. He would just by himself. He had the fortitude, the diligence, the willpower to sit and learn just straight, hour after hour after hour after hour, and they have videos of him, and you can hear the way he learned, the way he said the Gemara out loud, in a question and answer form, saying the question, the Gemara's question, the answer, the question of Tosas, and he would say it in the sweetness of his voice, and he was a world unto himself, and he created an entire of a world in his own learning. And they say that after he got married, when you get married, you'll see that the first couple is very busy. You're setting up a house. There's so many things you need to buy. We forgot to buy this, and we have to be told with this. You have to immerse this in the mikveh, and go here, and go this, and get this, and get shades, and stuff's not working, fixing the apartment. So he was a newly married fellow, and no different than any newly married person. And his wife said, we have a list of things that need to get done. And he said, okay, do I have to do it today, or can it wait? Can it wait? She said, it could wait. So she said, how long should we wait? He said, 1,000 days. And sure enough, he didn't need to do whatever it is that got done, whatever really had to get done, got done. He knew he had to learn Torah. He knew that's what he was here for. So we can, a lot of times when I have to do this. So okay, we're not Rav Elyashiv, obviously, but we don't have to do it this minute. If right now we're engaged in something we need to do, then do it. Immerse yourself in. If you need to get done, of course you have to get done. If you have to pick up your child from nursery or from yeshiva, whatever, you're not going to say, well, I'm learning now, I'm just going to leave him stranded there, and the kid's going to be traumatized, crying and screaming, where's my tati? Obviously, there comes a point when you have to get up from your learning to do what needs to be done. But don't do it the second that impulse comes. But stay with what you're doing, and who knows? Maybe something happened, your wife told you to do something, she'll text you, I didn't think I was going out, I used to go get milk, I ended up for different reasons having to go out, and I ended up getting milk, so okay, you don't have to bother. Hey, great, okay, it worked. Okay, let's go on a little bit in the Sedra. I'm going to talk about, all the way towards the end of the Sedra, after Bilam realized that he wasn't far from successful in cursing the Jews, and just the opposite. He ended up blessing the Jews, and the blessings that he gave, the rabbis contemplated even making part of the daily prayers. The blessings are so special. But he prophesied at the end, and he made comments about different nations, and he mentions Amalek. And he says, Reishis Goyim Amalek, the first of the nations is Amalek, Vacharisai Adei Oved, and in the end, they're going to be nothing. Amalek is our arch enemy. We're obligated to destroy Amalek. Not just, we spoke yesterday about Ammon and Moab and Edom, about when and if they can become part of the nation of Israel. A male from Ammon and Moab can never become part of the nation of Israel. A woman can. From Edom after 3 generations. Amalek, we're not talking about the conversion aspect of it. We're talking about when an Amaleki is an Amaleki, it has to be destroyed. We have to actively pursue them. We're not supposed to wait till they wage war on us, but we're supposed to actually proactively wipe out, obliterate Amalek. Man, woman, child, cattle, anything that has the name of Amalek on it, we have to destroy. What is it about Amalek? It's not. It's really. It doesn't. I mean, on the surface, it doesn't sound. Why would God tell us to do this? And it doesn't even sound Jewish. Like what? What is it about Amalek? What is it about their existence that's the antithesis that goes so directly against what we are as Jews? Now, Amalek is Amalek lived a life of, there are no consequences. Asher karcha baderech mikra, which means chance, it happened. Things happen. There's an expression in English, whatever. Happens, things happen. It doesn't mean there's any divinity involved. Things happen. There are no consequences. It's a very different, it's fundamentally different. We lead purposeful lives. Amalek looks at this world, that this world, it's chance, it's coincidence. And again, the verse is, Asher karcha baderech b'tzeischem mimitzrayim. Now every word in the Torah has significance. When the Torah says, Asher karcha baderech, they happened upon you, it doesn't mean they happened upon you. They knew where they were going. They weren't going on a picnic and, oh wow, hey, all of a sudden we have the whole Amaleki army and hey, the Jews are all here, let's fight. It didn't happen upon us. They came to us. Happening is their lifestyle. That's philosophy. That's how they live in this world. Asher karcha baderech, on the way. But does it make a difference? We're on a road, not a road. Is there a road in the Midbar? What path? What road are we talking about? But we were coming out of Egypt. Okay, is there a history lesson here? Do we need to tell me history? So what road were we on? When we came to Mitzrayim, what road were we on? We're on the road to Ma'amad HaSinai, to the giving of the Torah. We're on the road to come to Israel. And that's, they needed to stop us. Amalek cannot live, and World War II is just a personification of that. Not that I read all of it, but if you look I've read excerpts of Mein Kampf. The coexistence, the Jew introduced guilt into the world. Our actions have consequences. Exact opposite of the philosophy of Amalek. There are ramifications to what we do. The smallest things that we do have consequences and ramifications. And of course, the more important thing we do certainly have. Amalek needs to be, it's seek and destroy. Amalek needs to be eradicated because that lifestyle, the other nations of the world, it's neutral. Fine, they can observe the seven Noahide laws, and God is God, and they could be righteous people, and not only they present no threat to us. Well, we're the chosen people, and we understand that, and we have our obligation and our responsibilities and our purpose and mission in life, and which is far different from the nations of the world. But the nations of the world aren't counter to us. Amalek is counter to our very existence. And it's interesting, we're just talking about being on the way, when we're probably familiar with the sin of the golden calf, the Chet HaEgel, that when Moshe tarried and he came down according to the calculations that we had made, he was supposed to come down a day earlier. Really, Moshe's calculations were precise. And we however we understand it, the Chet HaEgel, the sin of the golden calf, is compared to a form of idolatry. We're going to go into how it is, why it was, but it is. So when God came down, God said, He said, they made an egel masecha. We made a golden calf. But Hashem said something first. He said, Saru maher min haderech. Hashem is telling Moshe, they quickly went aside from the road. Asu lahem egel masecha. They made a golden calf. Okay, I understand that. They made a golden calf. That's pretty heavy. They made a golden calf. But Saru maher min haderech, why is that important? Because the derech that we're on, again, the derech doesn't mean they just happen to be. We have a purpose. Wherever you are, we're on a road. And a road means, we can look back and say, I came out of Mitzrayim, and we saw the plagues, we saw the makos, we witnessed Yetzias Mitzrayim, the exodus from Egypt. We saw Kriyas Yamsuf, the splitting of the sea. We saw the giving of the Torah, and we know we're going to Israel. We have where to look back, and we have where to look forward to. We come from something. We have a heritage. We have a destiny. We have a purpose, and we know where we're going. Derech is crucial in the life of a Jew, and we always have to check, and that's the Torah commands that grandparents teach grandchildren. That's a specific command of the Torah to tell your grandchildren about the event at Sinai. You should tell your grandchildren, don't just figure it out on your own, and even your parents are not enough. When the Torah includes grandparents into a directive to teach their grandchildren, it means, Lo ani tchilas hakdusha. I'm not where the holiness starts. We go back. We have a Masorah. We have a tradition. We have a heritage dating all the way back to the Avos, to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And we have to always be conscious that we're on the path, and what path that we're on, and specifically when we're on that path, that's when Amalek tried to trip us up. Asher karcha baderech. To try to play with our heads. So, it doesn't matter. You think it matters? No, that doesn't matter. Just look around you. Make a decision on life, whatever decisions you make. Career, marriage, morality. There are no consequences. That's the life of Amalek. That's not the life of the Jew. So end with that thought. Always keep in mind, there's always, if somehow you lose sight on what's in front of you, you're not sure where you're going, then look back. Look back. I don't know, I'm kind of lost here. It's gray, it's fuzzy, it's hazy. Yeah, but what did my grandparents say? What did my grandparents say from their grandparents? Lo ani tchilas hakdusha. Doesn't start with me. I don't have to just look, I don't have to figure it out all on my own. I have from where to look back and get guidance on how to go forward. So we should all together use our collective heritage and also look at the people who are ahead of us in life, people that have set the path and have made yeshivas like this and institutions, and the world is full of so many things that we can readily see that this is the path to go, and we should all be successful in choosing such a life. Thank you all.